Most people believe that power comes from speaking louder, defending themselves faster, or proving others wrong. But one of the deepest truths about human psychology is that every emotional reaction reveals something about you. It exposes what hurts you, what threatens your confidence, and where your emotional boundaries are weakest. Whether you realize it or not, every time you react impulsively to criticism, insults, mockery, or disrespect, you are giving others a map of your inner world. Human beings are naturally observant. They notice patterns. If someone discovers that a certain topic makes you angry, or a particular comment makes you defensive, they may consciously or unconsciously use that knowledge again. This is why emotional reactions often become invitations rather than conclusions. Instead of ending conflict, they frequently encourage more of it. The moment someone realizes they can control your emotions, they gain influence over your decisions, your focus, and even your peace of mind. This is why emotional mastery has always been one of the greatest forms of strength. It is not about pretending that you have no feelings or becoming emotionally cold. It is about refusing to allow temporary emotions to control permanent actions. Every emotion deserves acknowledgement, but not every emotion deserves expression. There is a profound difference between feeling anger and acting on it. The first is natural. The second is a choice. The strongest individuals are not those who never become upset. They are the ones who remain in command of themselves even when emotions rise. They understand that every reaction has consequences, and they refuse to let someone else's behavior determine their own. Modern psychology explains that emotional reactions are often driven by the brain's instinctive survival system. When we feel attacked, misunderstood, or embarrassed, our immediate impulse is to defend ourselves. This response may have once protected our ancestors from physical danger, but in today's world, it often creates unnecessary conflict. A harsh comment on social media, a sarcastic remark at work, or an unfair opinion from someone else rarely requires an instant emotional response. Yet many people react as though every disagreement is a threat to their identity. They confuse defending their ego with protecting their dignity. In reality, true dignity rarely needs to announce itself. It is reflected through calm decisions, measured words, and the confidence to remain composed under pressure. Consider how easily people lose focus because of emotional distractions. A single negative comment can dominate someone's thoughts for hours, sometimes even days. Meanwhile, the person who made the comment may have already forgotten it. This is the hidden cost of uncontrolled reactions. You sacrifice valuable mental energy that could have been invested in learning, creating, improving, or building your future. Your attention is one of your most precious resources. Every unnecessary argument spends a portion of it. Every emotional confrontation drains it further. Those who protect their attention protect the direction of their lives. History consistently shows that remarkable leaders, skilled negotiators, and disciplined thinkers shared one common characteristic. They rarely reacted impulsively. They understood that patience creates clarity. When emotions settle, better decisions emerge. Instead of answering every accusation immediately, they allowed time to separate facts from feelings. They recognized that silence often reveals more than hurried words ever could. A calm individual naturally appears more confident because composure signals inner security. When people see someone who refuses to be provoked by every criticism, they instinctively perceive strength rather than weakness. This does not mean accepting injustice or remaining silent when important principles are at stake. There are moments when speaking up is necessary and courageous. However, wisdom lies in recognizing the difference between meaningful action and emotional impulse. Not every insult deserves a reply. Not every misunderstanding deserves an explanation. Not every opinion deserves your attention. The ability to distinguish between what matters and what merely distracts is one of the defining qualities of emotional intelligence. Ultimately, your reactions determine who controls your inner world. If every criticism changes your mood, every insult alters your behavior, and every disagreement steals your peace, then your emotional life is being directed by other people. But when you learn to pause before responding, to observe before speaking, and to choose your actions deliberately rather than emotionally, something remarkable happens. You reclaim authority over yourself. You stop living according to other people's expectations and begin living according to your own principles. That is where real power begins, not when the world stops testing you, but when its provocations no longer have the ability to control you. Most people believe that if they simply explain themselves clearly enough, everyone will eventually understand their intentions. It seems logical. When someone misunderstands you, spreads false assumptions, or questions your decisions, the natural instinct is to defend yourself with more words. You feel compelled to justify your actions, clarify your motives, and correct every misconception. Yet one of the most valuable psychological lessons is that explanations rarely change the minds of people who have already chosen what they want to believe. Instead, excessive explaining often weakens your position because it signals that you are seeking validation rather than standing firmly in your own convictions. Human beings do not form opinions based solely on facts. Our beliefs are influenced by emotions, personal experiences, biases, and expectations. Once someone has created a narrative about you, they tend to notice information that supports it, while ignoring evidence that contradicts it. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. It means that your carefully crafted explanation may not be received as you intend. In fact, the more you argue, the more determined some people become to defend their original opinion. The conversation shifts from discovering the truth to protecting personal pride. Silence interrupts this cycle. It denies unnecessary conflict the fuel it needs to continue. When you remain composed instead of rushing to justify yourself, you communicate something far more powerful than words: confidence. Confidence is not demonstrated by speaking the loudest. It is demonstrated by knowing when speaking is unnecessary. A person who trusts their own character does not feel the need to convince every observer. They understand that lasting respect is earned through consistent behavior, not endless explanations. This does not mean refusing accountability or avoiding honest conversations. There are moments when clear communication is essential, especially with people who genuinely care about understanding you. Healthy relationships thrive on openness and mutual respect. However, wisdom lies in recognizing the difference between sincere dialogue and fruitless debate. If someone approaches you with curiosity, explaining yourself can strengthen trust. If someone approaches you only to criticize, provoke, or misunderstand, additional words often become wasted energy. History repeatedly shows that many respected leaders, innovators, and thinkers were misunderstood during their lives. They could have spent every day defending themselves against criticism, but many chose instead to let their actions become their explanation. Over time, consistent character proved stronger than temporary opinions. Their achievements eventually spoke louder than any argument ever could. There is also an emotional cost to constant explanation. Every attempt to justify yourself requires mental energy. You replay conversations, search for better words, and worry about whether people finally understand your perspective. Gradually, your attention shifts away from your goals and becomes trapped in managing other people's perceptions. This is a subtle form of emotional dependence because your peace begins to rely on receiving approval from others. True freedom comes when your sense of self is rooted in your values rather than public opinion. Silence, when chosen intentionally, is not passive. It is an active decision to protect your focus. It reflects emotional maturity because it shows that you can tolerate being misunderstood without allowing it to define your identity. Rather than reacting impulsively, you allow time, integrity, and consistent actions to reveal the truth. People may question your motives today, but if your behavior remains honest and disciplined, reality eventually becomes impossible to ignore. In the end, the strongest explanation is not the one delivered through perfect words. It is the one demonstrated through a life of integrity. When your actions consistently reflect your principles, your reputation becomes more convincing than any speech. Silence is not about hiding the truth. It is about trusting that genuine character, patiently expressed through action, will always outlast temporary judgment. Many people spend an extraordinary amount of energy fighting battles that never needed to be fought in the first place. Human nature often convinces us that every insult demands a response, every disagreement requires a defense, and every challenge must be met head-on. Yet one of the greatest signs of wisdom is not the ability to win every conflict, but the ability to recognize which conflicts are worth your time and which are merely distractions disguised as opportunities. Life is not a competition to prove yourself to everyone you meet. It is a journey of directing your limited energy toward what truly matters. Every unnecessary argument, every pointless debate, and every attempt to convince someone who has already made up their mind quietly drains the emotional and mental resources you could have invested in your goals, your relationships, and your personal growth. Psychology teaches us that attention is one of the most valuable assets we possess. Wherever your attention goes, your emotions, thoughts, and actions naturally follow. This is why people who constantly engage in conflict often feel exhausted, anxious, or emotionally overwhelmed. They are not necessarily dealing with bigger problems than everyone else. They are simply giving too much importance to situations that do not deserve such a significant place in their minds. Every unnecessary battle occupies mental space long after the conversation has ended. Even when you walk away, your mind continues replaying the words, imagining better responses, and reliving emotions that no longer serve any purpose. In this way, a 5-minute argument can quietly steal hours or even days of inner peace. There is a powerful difference between courage and impulsiveness. Courage means standing firm when your values, responsibilities, or principles genuinely require action. Impulsiveness, however, often tricks you into believing that your pride must be defended at every opportunity. The emotionally mature person understands that protecting their peace is often more valuable than protecting their ego. They recognize that not every criticism deserves an explanation because some criticism is not offered to encourage growth, but simply to provoke an emotional reaction. Responding to every provocation only gives more life to negativity, while strategic silence allows unnecessary conflict to lose its momentum naturally. Throughout history, many of the world's most respected leaders demonstrated remarkable restraint. They understood that every decision carries an opportunity cost. Every hour spent defending themselves against petty accusations was an hour not spent building something meaningful. Their success came not from engaging every opponent, but from remaining focused on their larger purpose. They recognized that people who constantly seek conflict often want attention more than resolution. Refusing to participate does not always mean avoiding responsibility. Sometimes it means refusing to reward behavior that thrives on emotional reactions. Think of your energy as a limited investment rather than an unlimited resource. Each day you wake up with only so much emotional strength, mental focus, and physical stamina. Every unnecessary argument withdraws from that account. If you spend your emotional energy proving strangers wrong, defending yourself against every opinion, or chasing every misunderstanding, you may have very little left for your dreams, your family, your creativity, or your personal development. Successful individuals become highly selective about where they invest this energy because they understand that focus creates progress, while constant distraction creates stagnation. Another important psychological principle is that many conflicts resolve themselves without your involvement. Time has an extraordinary ability to expose truth, reveal character, and change perspectives. Situations that seem urgent today often become completely irrelevant weeks later. If you had reacted emotionally in the moment, you might have created consequences that lasted far longer than the original problem itself. By exercising patience, you allow emotions to settle and reality to become clearer. This does not mean ignoring serious issues that genuinely require action. Rather, it means distinguishing between problems that deserve thoughtful solutions and distractions that deserve quiet indifference. Ultimately, mastering life is not about proving your strength in every battle. It is about preserving your strength for the battles that truly shape your future. Your goals deserve your attention more than your critics. Your peace deserves your protection more than your pride. Every unnecessary conflict you choose to avoid is not a sign of weakness, but evidence of wisdom. The strongest people are rarely those who argue the loudest. They are the ones who understand that their greatest victories are achieved not by winning every confrontation, but by refusing to let meaningless confrontations distract them from becoming the person they were meant to be. Many people believe that freedom comes from changing their external circumstances, earning more money, gaining recognition, finding better relationships, or eliminating every difficult person from their lives. While these things can improve your situation, they do not automatically create peace. Real freedom begins internally through emotional detachment. Emotional detachment does not mean becoming cold, uncaring, or disconnected from life. It means learning to experience emotions without allowing them to dominate your thoughts, decisions, or sense of self-worth. It is the ability to remain centered even when the world around you becomes chaotic. Human psychology has a natural tendency to cling. We cling to praise because it validates us. We cling to criticism because it threatens us, We cling to past mistakes because they haunt us. We cling to future fears because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. Over time, this constant attachment creates mental exhaustion. Your happiness becomes dependent on circumstances you cannot fully control, and your emotional state rises and falls with every opinion, success, failure, or disappointment. Instead of directing your own life, you become a passenger on an emotional roller coaster driven by external events. Emotional detachment breaks this cycle. It teaches you that not every thought deserves your attention, and not every emotion deserves your obedience. Feelings are temporary visitors, not permanent identities. You may feel angry, but you are not anger itself. You may feel rejected, but rejection does not define your value. You may feel anxious, but anxiety is simply a passing state, not a permanent condition. The moment you separate your identity from your emotions, you regain the ability to choose your response rather than reacting automatically. One of the greatest psychological advantages of emotional detachment is clarity. When emotions are intense, perception becomes distorted. Anger exaggerates insults. Fear magnifies uncertainty. Jealousy creates false comparisons. Pride resists necessary correction. In these moments, the mind becomes like a foggy window. You cannot clearly see reality because emotion has clouded your judgment. Detachment wipes that window clean. It allows you to observe situations objectively, making decisions based on reason instead of impulse. This is why emotionally balanced people often appear calm under pressure. They are not free from emotion. They have simply learned not to let emotion become their master. This principle is especially important in relationships. Many conflicts escalate because people react from wounded pride instead of thoughtful understanding. A careless comment becomes a week-long argument. A misunderstanding becomes permanent resentment. Emotional detachment encourages you to pause before responding. Instead of asking, how can I win this argument, you begin asking, is this argument worth my peace? That single shift in perspective changes everything. You stop fighting every battle simply because someone invites you to one. You conserve your emotional energy for conversations and relationships that truly matter. Detachment also protects you from becoming imprisoned by the opinions of others. Human beings naturally seek acceptance, but when approval becomes a necessity rather than a preference, life becomes a performance. Every decision is filtered through the question, what will people think? Instead of living according to your values, you begin living according to expectations. Emotional detachment reminds you that while feedback can be valuable, your identity should never depend on applause or criticism. You can listen without becoming controlled. You can learn without losing yourself. You can respect others without surrendering your own direction. Another hidden benefit of emotional detachment is resilience. Life is unpredictable. Success is followed by setbacks. Joy is interrupted by disappointment. Relationships change, opportunities appear and disappear. Those who attach their happiness to temporary circumstances often collapse when life shifts unexpectedly. Those who practice detachment adapt more easily because they understand that change is inevitable. They appreciate success without becoming arrogant and endure hardship without becoming hopeless. Their stability comes from within, not from the changing conditions around them. Ultimately, emotional detachment is not about withdrawing from life. It is about engaging with life more wisely. It allows you to care deeply without becoming consumed, to love without losing yourself, to pursue success without fearing failure, and to face criticism without sacrificing your confidence. It creates the mental freedom to choose peace over chaos, purpose over distraction, and wisdom over impulse. When you no longer allow every external event to dictate your internal state, you discover a quiet strength that cannot easily be shaken. That is the essence of true mental freedom. Not controlling everything that happens around you, but mastering how you respond to whatever happens within you. Most people spend a large portion of their lives worrying about what others think of them. A single negative comment can outweigh 100 compliments, and one harsh opinion can linger in the mind for days. Yet one of the most liberating psychological truths is that people's opinions often reveal far more about their own inner world than they do about yours. Human beings rarely see reality exactly as it is. They see it through the lens of their experiences, beliefs, fears, insecurities, expectations, and emotional state. What they say about you is frequently influenced by what is happening inside them. Psychologists describe this tendency as projection. Projection occurs when people unconsciously attribute their own emotions, motives, or unresolved conflicts to someone else. An insecure person may accuse confident individuals of being arrogant. Someone who struggles with dishonesty may become overly suspicious of everyone around them. A person who secretly fears failure may criticize others for taking ambitious risks, not because those risks are foolish, but because they remind them of the courage they never found within themselves. In these situations, their judgment is less about your character and more about their internal struggles. This is why two different people can observe the exact same individual and arrive at completely opposite conclusions. One may admire your discipline, while another calls you obsessive. One sees confidence, another sees pride. One interprets your silence as wisdom, while another mistakes it for weakness. The reality has not changed, only the perspective of the observer has. This demonstrates an important principle. Opinions are often reflections rather than objective measurements. Understanding this truth protects you from becoming emotionally dependent on external validation. If you constantly adjust your behavior to satisfy every opinion, you will eventually lose your own identity. Trying to please everyone is impossible because every person evaluates life according to different values, expectations, and personal experiences. What earns respect from one group may invite criticism from another. Therefore, chasing universal approval is not only exhausting, it is unattainable. History offers countless examples of people whose ideas were mocked before they were celebrated. Great thinkers, innovators, artists, and leaders were often misunderstood during their own time. Their willingness to remain faithful to their principles, despite criticism, became one of the defining reasons for their success. Had they measured their worth solely by public opinion, many of their greatest contributions would never have existed. This does not mean every opinion should be ignored. Constructive criticism is valuable because it focuses on behavior, offers practical insight, and encourages growth. It comes from a genuine desire to help you improve. Destructive criticism, however, often attacks identity rather than behavior. It aims to provoke emotion rather than inspire progress. Emotional intelligence lies in distinguishing between these two forms of feedback. Learn from those who wish to help you become better, but do not surrender your peace to those who simply wish to express their negativity. Another important reality is that people often judge based on limited information. They see a single moment, but not the years of effort behind it. They witness one decision, but not the circumstances that led to it. They observe your success, but not your sacrifices. Since no one fully understands another person's journey, their conclusions will always be incomplete. Recognizing this prevents you from taking every judgment personally. Ultimately, your responsibility is not to control what others think. That is impossible. Your responsibility is to control your character, your actions, and your response. Let your integrity speak louder than rumors, your consistency outweigh assumptions, and your actions become stronger than opinions. When you truly understand that people's judgments often reveal their own fears, values, and perspectives more than your reality, you stop living for applause and stop fearing criticism. You become anchored in self-awareness rather than public approval, and that quiet confidence is one of the greatest forms of freedom a person can achieve. True confidence is rarely loud. It does not demand applause, chase validation, or feel compelled to prove itself to every critic. Instead, it expresses itself through restraint. One of the clearest signs of emotional maturity is the ability to control your impulses, especially when your emotions urge you to react immediately. In a world where people are encouraged to respond instantly to every disagreement, criticism, or misunderstanding, self-control has become one of the rarest and most valuable strengths a person can develop. Many people mistake emotional reactions for authenticity. They believe that saying whatever comes to mind proves honesty or courage, but psychology suggests otherwise. The ability to delay gratification, regulate emotions, and choose thoughtful responses over impulsive ones is closely associated with higher emotional intelligence and better long-term decision-making. The strongest individuals are not those who never experience anger, frustration, or disappointment. They are those who refuse to let those emotions dictate their behavior. Consider how often unnecessary conflicts begin. Someone makes an unfair comment, a rumor spreads, an accusation appears without evidence. The immediate temptation is to defend yourself, explain your intentions, or prove the other person wrong. Yet this instinct often comes from insecurity rather than confidence. Deep down, we fear being misunderstood or judged, so we seek immediate reassurance by responding. However, every explanation given to someone who has already chosen not to understand usually creates another argument instead of resolution. Self-control allows you to pause between emotion and action. In that brief moment of silence, you regain something incredibly valuable: choice. Instead of reacting automatically, you begin asking better questions. Does this situation deserve my attention? Will responding improve anything? Am I protecting my peace or simply protecting my pride? These questions transform emotional reactions into intentional decisions. History consistently demonstrates that respected leaders, skilled negotiators, and wise thinkers rarely made important decisions while overwhelmed by emotion. They understood that emotions are temporary, while consequences often last much longer. A single impulsive response can damage years of trust, while one moment of patience can preserve opportunities that anger would have destroyed. This is why emotional discipline is often described as a form of quiet strength. It prevents temporary feelings from creating permanent problems. There is another psychological reason self-control reflects confidence. People who truly know their worth do not constantly seek external validation. They are less dependent on praise and less threatened by criticism because their identity is built on internal values rather than public opinion. Their confidence comes from consistent actions, personal integrity, and self-respect, not from winning debates or convincing everyone to agree with them. Because they are secure within themselves, they do not feel obligated to respond to every challenge that crosses their path. This mindset also changes the way others perceive you. Calm individuals often appear more trustworthy, composed, and capable because they communicate stability under pressure. When everyone else becomes emotionally reactive, the person who remains centered naturally stands out. Their silence is not interpreted as weakness by thoughtful observers. Instead, it reflects confidence, patience, and emotional balance. Over time, people begin respecting those who demonstrate consistency rather than emotional volatility. Developing self-control does not mean suppressing your emotions or pretending that difficult situations never affect you. Healthy emotional regulation means acknowledging your feelings without allowing them to become your master. You can feel disappointed without becoming destructive. You can experience anger without becoming aggressive. You can face criticism without becoming defensive. Emotional awareness combined with deliberate action creates resilience, allowing you to navigate challenges without sacrificing your values. The practice of self-control also protects your long-term goals. Every unnecessary argument consumes time, attention, and mental energy that could have been invested in learning, improving, or creating something meaningful. Successful people often understand that focus is a limited resource. They carefully choose where to direct it, because they know distractions disguised as conflicts can quietly derail progress. By refusing to react impulsively, they preserve their energy for pursuits that genuinely move their lives forward. Ultimately, real confidence is not measured by how loudly you defend yourself, but by how peacefully you carry yourself. It is demonstrated through the ability to remain calm when others expect chaos, to remain respectful when others choose hostility, and to remain focused when others attempt to distract you. Self-control is not about avoiding life's challenges. It is about responding to them with wisdom instead of impulse. The person who masters their emotions gains something far greater than the satisfaction of winning an argument. They gain mastery over themselves. And there is no greater form of confidence than knowing that your mind, your decisions, and your future are guided by purpose rather than by temporary emotions. Negativity has a unique ability to disguise itself as urgency. It convinces you that every criticism must be answered, every insult must be challenged, and every misunderstanding must be corrected immediately. Yet one of the greatest lessons in psychology is that attention is a limited resource. Wherever your attention goes, your energy follows, and wherever your energy flows consistently, your life begins to grow in that direction. If you continually invest your mental energy in negativity, conflict, and unnecessary battles, you unknowingly shape a future filled with emotional exhaustion instead of meaningful progress. Many people believe they are protecting themselves by responding to every attack, but in reality, they are allowing negative people to dictate their priorities. Every minute spent replaying an argument in your mind is a minute stolen from your ambitions. Every hour spent proving yourself to someone who has already chosen to misunderstand you is an hour that could have been invested in developing new skills, strengthening relationships, or moving closer to your goals. Success is often less about doing more and more about refusing to waste energy on what contributes nothing to your growth. The human brain naturally pays more attention to negative experiences than positive ones, a phenomenon psychologists call the negativity bias. Thousands of years ago, this instinct helped human beings survive by making them alert to danger. In modern life, however, this same instinct can become a trap. 100 people may appreciate your work, but one harsh comment can dominate your thoughts for days. If you are not careful, you begin living for the opinions of a small number of critics instead of the values that truly matter. Understanding this tendency allows you to consciously redirect your focus toward what is productive rather than what is merely distracting. Ignoring negativity does not mean pretending that problems do not exist. It means developing the wisdom to distinguish between criticism that helps you improve and criticism that only seeks to pull you into unnecessary conflict. Constructive feedback deserves reflection because it offers an opportunity for growth. Destructive criticism, on the other hand, often reveals more about the emotional state of the speaker than about your character. Learning this distinction is one of the most valuable forms of emotional intelligence because it prevents you from wasting precious time fighting battles that cannot improve your life. Imagine planting a tree. Every day you have a choice. You can spend your time watering the roots, protecting it from harmful conditions, and allowing it to grow stronger. Or you can spend your days arguing with every person who doubts that the tree will ever become great. At the end of several years, only one of those choices produces fruit. Your dreams, your character, and your future operate according to the same principle. Growth requires consistent attention. Distraction quietly steals that attention, one unnecessary argument at a time. Some people intentionally create negativity because they crave attention. They understand that emotional reactions give them influence. When they provoke anger, frustration, or defensiveness, they feel powerful because they have successfully redirected your focus toward them. The moment you recognize this pattern, you gain the freedom to choose a different response. Silence is not surrender. It is often the clearest declaration that your purpose matters more than someone else's attempt to disrupt your peace. History repeatedly shows that remarkable individuals protected their vision by refusing to become consumed by criticism. Every innovator, creator, entrepreneur, leader eventually encountered skepticism. Had they devoted all their energy to convincing every doubter, they would have had little energy left to build anything meaningful. Their greatest response was not endless explanation, but consistent action. Over time, their work became stronger than the voices that opposed them. Protecting your future requires protecting your mind. The quality of your future is shaped by the quality of your daily thoughts, habits, and decisions. Every unnecessary conflict you ignore creates more space for learning, creativity, discipline, and meaningful progress. Every moment you choose inner peace over emotional chaos becomes an investment in the person you are becoming. The strongest people are not those who never encounter negativity. They are those who refuse to let negativity determine the direction of their lives. They understand that the greatest victory is not winning every argument, but preserving the focus needed to build a future that no criticism can diminish. True power is often misunderstood. Many people imagine it as dominance, influence, wealth, or the ability to command attention. They believe the strongest person in the room is the loudest voice, the one who wins every debate or always has the final word. Yet history, psychology, and philosophy repeatedly point toward a different truth. The highest form of power is not control over others. It is control over yourself. And the clearest sign of that control is inner peace. Inner peace is not the absence of challenges. It is the ability to remain steady while challenges surround you. It is waking up each day without allowing other people's opinions to dictate your mood. It is refusing to let insults steal your confidence or setbacks destroy your direction. This kind of peace cannot be purchased, inherited, or borrowed. It is earned through discipline, self-awareness, and countless moments of choosing calm over chaos. Many people spend their lives chasing public victories. They want recognition, applause, and validation. They want everyone to admit they were right. They measure success by how many people admire them or how many arguments they win. But this pursuit creates a dangerous dependency. The moment your happiness depends on the approval of others, you surrender your emotional freedom. You become vulnerable to criticism, praise, rejection, and comparison. Your peace rises and falls according to circumstances you cannot fully control. Psychology teaches that lasting well-being comes from intrinsic stability rather than external validation. When your identity is rooted in your values instead of other people's opinions, Your confidence becomes remarkably resilient. Praise becomes pleasant but unnecessary. Criticism becomes informative rather than devastating. You begin living according to your principles instead of constantly adjusting yourself to satisfy everyone around you. Think of a large tree standing through changing seasons. In spring it blossoms, in summer it provides shade, in autumn it sheds its leaves, and in winter it stands bare against the cold wind. The seasons change constantly, yet the tree remains rooted. Human life follows similar cycles. Success and failure, praise and criticism, gain and loss all come and go like changing weather. If your roots are planted deeply in self-respect and purpose, temporary storms cannot uproot you. Inner peace also transforms the way you make decisions. Fear no longer rushes you. Anger no longer controls your words. Pride no longer forces you into unnecessary conflicts. Instead, your actions become intentional. You respond because it serves your purpose, not because your emotions demand immediate satisfaction. This level of emotional discipline allows clearer thinking, stronger relationships, and wiser choices. One of the greatest paradoxes of life is that people who desperately seek power over others often reveal how little power they have over themselves. They become consumed by jealousy, competition, resentment, and insecurity. They cannot tolerate disagreement without becoming defensive. They cannot witness another person's success without comparison. Their emotional state depends entirely on external circumstances. Despite appearing powerful, they remain prisoners of their own reactions. In contrast, a person who possesses inner peace carries an invisible strength. They do not need to announce their confidence because it quietly reveals itself through consistency. They do not waste energy proving their worth because they already know it. They forgive without becoming weak, remain humble without losing dignity, and continue moving forward without being distracted by every opinion they encounter. Their silence is not emptiness. It is evidence of a mind that no longer seeks validation from unnecessary battles. Ultimately, the greatest victory is not defeating another person. It is overcoming the fear, ego, impulsiveness, and insecurity within yourself. Public victories may earn applause for a moment, but inner peace creates fulfillment for a lifetime. Long after arguments are forgotten and opinions fade away, the person who has mastered their own mind continues to walk forward with quiet confidence. That is the kind of strength that cannot be taken away because it is built from within. True power is not measured by how many people you can control, but by how completely you can remain at peace while the world around you constantly changes.